Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's tutorial I'm going to be sharing with you how to cut this stylish blouse with skirt or two-piece dress. So if this is something you like, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button. So let's dive right into today's video. So to start, here is my pattern paper. I've marked my shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, and shoulder to waistline. So from my waistline I marked 5 inches to get my blouse length. So after that I'll just go ahead to mark my shoulder divided by 2. Because we are attaching a sleeve to this, I'll mark ½ inch to it, so making my shoulder 7.5, and I'll come down by 1 inch. I'll draw my shoulder slope. So my shoulder is 14 divided by 2, 7. The ½ inch I added made it 7.5. So I'll place my tape to find my chest line or armhole line, which is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. So I'll just go ahead to draw a straight line at that point. Now after I'm done drawing, I'm going to draw a straight line connecting from the shoulder to the chest line, but I'm going to mark what I have at the shoulder to enable me have a straight line, which is that 7.5 inches. Now after I'm done marking this, I'm just going to go ahead to divide what I have at the shoulder by 2, and I'll mark. From that point, I'm going to come in by ½ inch. I'll go ahead to mark my bust circumference divided by 4. Now, I'm going to connect from my bust circumference to the ½ inch we came in and to the upper part of the shoulder. Now, this is my armhole curve, and the next step you're going to take from here is to go ahead to mark your dart. And to do that, you're going to mark your nipple to nipple divided by 2 or your bust band divided by 2. So mine is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5 inches. So I marked down that all the way down. So after that, I'm going to go ahead to use my ruler, and I'm going to connect my pattern all the way to the top length of this dress. Now I'm going to be marking my dart intake of 1 inch on both sides, and I will connect. So for a plus size you can use 1.5 inches, and I will take this all the way to the top length, and I'm going to go ahead to mark a straight line connecting all the lines that I have made. After I'm done connecting, the next step is to connect from your bust down to your under bust, and I'm going to go ahead to also repeat this at the other side of my pattern. And after I'm done connecting, from the mid part of your armhole, you're going to go ahead to connect this all the way to the bust line this way. And after you're done connecting, you're going to be marking a dart intake of ½ inch on both sides. And I'll just go ahead to mark and also mark. Now you're going to connect this to the initial line that you have. You're going to go ahead to connect it all the way down, and after you're done connecting this, you're going to be extending the lower part by 1 inch. Now you're going to place and you're going to mark out 1 inch from that part, and you're going to reconnect it. You're going to go ahead to reconnect this down to your armhole point. After you're done marking that out, just go ahead to place your curved drew, and you're going to reconnect. This is so that when you're sewing, the side by the side of your pattern paper is not shorter than the part in front. And now I'll just use my marker to mark this out. The next step is to insert your body measurement. On the bust line, I'm going to be marking the bust circumference divided by 4. So that you took at the arm, you're going to go ahead, at the armhole, you're going to replace it. That is 1 inch, and you're going to mark your sewing allowance on the pattern paper. Now at the underbust, you mark your underbust circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace it, and you're going to go ahead to add your sewing allowance. At the waist, you're going to mark your waist circumference divided by 4. Then measure this dart intake, and you're going to go ahead to replace this and add your sewing allowance. Now at the top length, you're going to be marking your hip circumference divided by 4, and after marking that, you're going to measure this dart intake, mark it down, and add your sewing allowance. The next step is just to go ahead to reconnect your pattern. So you're going to connect from the bust to the under bust to the waist and down to the top length this way. So after I'm done marking this, I'll go ahead to work on the neckline of this pattern. Then go ahead to cut this out. But before doing that, I'll go ahead and mark out my neckline. So from here, I'll mark the basic neckline of 3 inches. So after I'm done marking that, I'll be coming to my chest line and I'll mark 3.5 inches up. From there, I'm just going to create like a curve all the way down, and then from what I have at the neckline, I'm just going to extend this and connect. So I marked this out with a pencil just in case I'm not okay with what I have. I'll just go ahead to reconnect it. Now I'll just use my marker to mark this out, and the next step is to go ahead to work on the lower part of this pattern. So from this part of your pattern, you can decide to go up by 2 inches, 2.5 or 3 inches. So I went up by 2.5 inches and I will blend my dart in this way, and I'm just going to use a ruler to connect, drawing out the shape that we have at that point. But if you're not okay with what you have, you can just go ahead and retrace this out. So I'll just go ahead and cut out the rest of my pattern. So at this point, if you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and if you also have a question concerning this tutorial, also leave that at the comment section. So now to cut out the back pattern, I've gone ahead to mark my basic measurement just like we did at the front pattern, and the only difference is that I have a zipper at the front part of this dress, and I'm going to go ahead to label my pattern. So for this dress, to start marking at the back, I'm going to go ahead to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2, and I'm going to mark that all the way to the lower part of my pattern, just like we did for the front. So if you notice in this pattern, I didn't use a bust dart. So I'm trying to make this tutorial very beginner friendly. So adding a bust dart to this might confuse some people. And all my measurements is starting after the zipper line. Sorry. After that, I went ahead to mark 1/2 inch on both sides of my waistline, and I'm going to extend this all the way up, and I'm also going to do the same thing to the other side of my pattern. I'm going to go ahead to extend my dart down. So after I'm done doing this, the next step is to go ahead to divide what I have at the armhole into 2. So I also want to give this princess dart effect at the back of the pattern. So after connecting it this way, all I'll do is just add 1/2 inch at the lower part. This is just to make sure that when I'm joining the back, the side won't be too short or shorter than the part in front. And after that, I'll just go ahead and use my marker, and I'm going to connect this from this part all the way to the rest of my pattern. So after that, I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4, and I will just add this 1/2 inch and add my sewing allowance, mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace and add my sewing allowance. Going over to the top length, I'll mark my hip circumference divided by 4 and add my sewing allowance. Now I'm going to connect my pattern, and from the bust to the from the bust to the waistline and also to the top length. And after I'm done marking this, I'll just go ahead to use my marker to connect. So just like we came up by 2.5 inches at the lower part, I'll just go ahead and mark this, and then instead of taking that down, I'll just make my back pattern a bit higher than the front. So this is because I didn't use a bust dart, and you want to make the blouse length at the back a bit shorter. So I'll just go ahead and connect. The next step is to get rid of the bulginess at the back of the dress, and I'll add 1/2 inch to this part. I'll mark 1/2 inch, extend it all the way down, and I will be taking this up this way. So after I'm done doing that, I'll just go ahead to mark this out, and we're going to go ahead to cut out this pattern before we alter the neckline at the upper part of this dress. So actually this dress has a lacing bar at the back, but for my pattern I decided to add a zipper to it. So now we are going to go ahead to alter the neckline. I'll place my tape after my zip and mark 3 inches by 2 inches for the back neckline. So this is if you want your back dress to be a basic neckline for the dress. But just like I said, this dress has a lacing bar at the back, but mine is with zipper. So I'm just going to extend this all the way to the chest line because that is how it is actually on the main dress. So I'm just going to mark this. So if you're okay with this, you can just go ahead to cut your own from this, but I'm going to go up a bit from my chest line. I don't want mine to be too low. So just like I said, you can just fold in this part of your dress and you're going to be creating a lacing bar for your own. So I'll just cut out this part, and this is what I have for the back. Moving over to the lower part of the skirt, I'm going to go ahead to start by marking my basic measurement. I'm going to mark my waist to hip point, which is 7 inches. So for a much taller person, you are going to be using 8 inches. So from there, I'll mark my skirt length, which is 18 inches, and I'll be adding 1.5 inches to this because I'm going to be folding the lower part of my skirt. I won't be turning the skirt at the lower part with lining. So I'm going to also go ahead to repeat all those measurements again, and I'm going to be drawing a straight line to connect it. So after connecting it, we are just going to go ahead to mark out our basic measurement. So at the waistline, I'll mark my by 4, which is 28 divided by 4. I have 7 inches. So I'll add 1 inch for my dart, and I'll go ahead to mark 1.5 inches for my sewing allowance. Now at the hip point, I'm going to go ahead to mark my hip circumference divided by 4 and add my sewing allowance to this pattern. So I'll be using 1 inch or 1.5 because I'm not adding lining to the skirt. So after measuring what I have at the hip, which is 11 inches, I'll take out 2 inches from that, and I'll be marking that 2 inches at the lower part of my skirt, and I'll go ahead and connect it to the skirt length. So I'll connect from my waist down to my hip point. And from my hip point, I'll take it to the lower part of my skirt this way, and I will connect. So after I'm done connecting that, I'll go ahead to mark my dart for the skirt. But before marking the dart for the skirt, I'll just go ahead and I will cut out this skirt pattern. So this is what I have for my skirt, and I'll cut out the excess I have at the lower part. The next step is just to go ahead to mark my dart. I'll mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2, come down by 4 inches. So you can also use 6 inches for this. I'll just go ahead and extend this down and then mark ½ inch on both sides, and I'm going to connect this all the way to the lower part and also connect this. So this is what I have for the front part of my skirt. And now to cut the back part, you're just going to go ahead to add your zipper allowance. But before cutting, I added 1 inch in front so that if I want to cut out my skirt for the back, I'll just go ahead and add my zipper allowance and just open my pattern this way. Then to cut the front, I'll just fold it up, as simple as that. So if you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button.